So you are one of those devotees who have been with Gurudev, and I had this feeling that from all the stories we listened to, you also followed Gurudev everywhere he used to go.
As
So
much as
was there a time when Gurudev told you go and do seva now?
one particular incident sticks out in my mind is that he was coming to California and we were setting up for all these public talks. And I had done my best. I still had a job in those days. I put ads in newspapers and we put flyers everywhere. And we did as an incredible job as we could. And I wanted all the work to be finished so that as soon as he arrived, I could go and spend time with him because that was the most exciting thing to do. So I was in Santa Barbara, staying at Jeff Houck's place, and somebody brought a poster from Northern California that was in color. We had never seen that before. It was a color photograph of Gurudev, and then it has all the title of the talk and where he's going to be, etc. And Gurudev looked at this and he said, "This is so beautiful. Let me see the posters you're using." I took the poster out. It was terrible. It was a black and white picture. I mean, it was nice, but it wasn't like that poster. And he said, "You know what? Why don't you redo your poster and use this picture and make it just like this and go to Los Angeles and put it all over Los Angeles." And it was like, I just did all that work and I just want to be here and just sit by your side. I don't want to have to leave and do this. So I went to some copy shop and I got the thing printed. I had like 300 in those days. That was a lot, 300 flyers. And I remember going to his room after it was done and I showed him the flyers and he looked at me and he says, "Leave first thing in the morning and don't come back until all the flyers are put up." And when he said that to me, I was just so angry. I'm like, so sitting like maybe 12 inches from him, looking at his face. He must have seen how red I was getting. I was just so angry because it was like, you're making me leave. I just want to be here with you and you're making me leave to go to Los Angeles to put up these stupid flyers. I didn't say a word, but I was just so angry. And I remember leaving the room. Maybe I stormed out of the room and I wound up calling everybody I could think of in Los Angeles and told them that Gurudev wanted these posters put up all over the city. And it was urgent and critical for the success of the talk. And they needed to do it immediately. And I drove halfway. I had them come and meet me halfway because it's a 2-hour ride from Santa Barbara to Los Angeles. And they took the 300 posters and I delegated it. And so I only missed 1 hour of being around Gurudev. And in the morning, he's having his breakfast and there I am. And he said, I told you to go and put up all those flyers. And I said, "Gurudev, don't worry, it's taken care of." And I explained that I had delegated it. He just had a big smile and laugh on his face, but it was like, it was very hard for me to go and do some seva when I was sitting around him. I just, it was just too enjoyable to leave and do something.
I can listen to you the whole night. So, Mikey, you are one of those who are known to give the best intro talks in Art of Living. You have taught introductory talks in Art of Living. That's what people are saying. Also, you have taught most TTCs in the world. It seems one of those teachers who have taught many TTCs. You also show Matrix movies in your TTCs, and you explain how the world is.
Who told you that?
So I have just activated my network now.
I see. Okay.
Okay, so now I have some interesting facts about you. So you very fascinatingly explain how the world is matrix, and there is so much to learn from it. Now my question to you is, there was also a few times when Gurudev used to make a lot of fun of you. He used to call you Mikey moves the world, or he used to make a lot of fun about your relationship. So how were those movements?
Well, actually, we were in Texas at one time, and Gurudev had the video Love Moves the World, which all of us have seen so many times. And I decided that I was going to create a documentary called Mikey Moves the World. And I don't know, I was just being so silly. And Philip Fraser, if you know him, he's been around for a very long time. He happened to have a video camera with him. And I would just have Philip go and point the camera at somebody. And I'd say, we're doing a documentary and we would like to ask you a question. Can you tell us, how has Michael Fischman changed your life? And, they were on the spot and they would say something silly. And we were going to edit this whole thing and make a parody on Love Moves the World and make it Mikey Moves the World. And we would just, it just, around Gurudev, sometimes the goofiness and the fun is so contagious that you don't even have a logical mind anymore. You're just so giddy. And we were in Gurudev's hotel suite, which we would refer to again as the kutir. And maybe 200 people were there. And everybody was laughing about this documentary that was being made, Mikey Moves the World, but really laughing. And it was just a very funny moment. And then in the middle of all the laughter, Gurudev looked at me and he said, Michael, you should be the president of the Art of Living Foundation in the US. And with that, there was such an uproar of laughter, like just belly laughing. Even myself, just belly laughing. And then he just looked at everybody and it got silent in the room. And he says, Michael, you'll be the next president of the foundation. So with all that humor, everything just switched on a dime. And then I wound up having all this responsibility for maybe 8 years or something like that.
25 years, is it?
No, I was president for like 8 years. And
8 years.
Before me was John Osborne was the president. He may have done it longer. He may have done it for 9 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
Were you from Silver Jubilee, United States?
We had Silver Jubilee in India. And then afterwards, probably 6 months later, we had Silver Jubilee in the United States. We had we rented the Kennedy Center, which is a very prestigious hall in Washington, D.C. Joe Biden, who's now the presidential candidate. Back then, he was a presidential candidate, and he came and he spoke. When I wrote Stumbling into Infinity, I really took pride in being an Art of Living historian. And I wrote it's obviously my story and my trials and tribulations, but it was also, it's a chronology of things that took place in Gurudev's life. And it really tells a lot about his story from his early days with Maharishi until he became Gurudev as he is now. And many times when Gurudev talks and he shares a story, he doesn't speak in chronological fashion, maybe more so now. But in the early days, he would be very abstract. And if you didn't listen intently and pay attention to all the details, it was very hard to see a timeline in Gurudev's life, what happened first and what happened next. And, like that. And in writing Stumbling into Infinity, it was a challenge in that I didn't want to get any of the facts wrong. And during Silver Jubilee, after the whole event was over, there was 3 of us in Gurudev's room, Jeff Hauk, myself, and John Osborne, Trimurti, as Gurudev would call us. And he just went back in time, and he told so many stories that night of from the early days of him being with Maharishi and the time he left Maharishi to starting the organization, etc. And it was so beautiful for me because I felt as though I just had my little checklist and I could check off, yep, correct. Yep, I got that right. Yes, correct. Yes, correct. So that was a lovely, lovely experience. And for all of those who have read Stumbling into Infinity or plan to read it, I can guarantee that the chronology and the timeline of events, at least for Gurudev's life, definitely for mine too, is very precise.
You mentioned about TM. You were yourself living in the TM ashram for quite a long time.
No, I didn't live in the TM ashram. I was not so engaged. I was not a TM teacher. I was not a big volunteer. I had taken the programs and all of that, and I was progressing more and more and more. But no, I spent very little time around Maharishi, maybe about an hour. I got to personally be with him. Saw him in a big group. But no, it was very different. And he was very different. To get access to him in the early days was easy, but towards the time I got involved, it was very challenging to get close to him. Not like now, everybody can get close to Gurudev. What really impressed me with this Guru Purnima course that we just had, even though there were 40,000 people, you probably didn't get to see this because you were in India, but in the United States, we had an opportunity for the new people to be in online darshan, separate from everybody else. Gurudev went and looked at every single person's face and even called their name. Oh, Steve, nice to see you, Steve. Oh, Bob, how are you, Bob? Oh, Mary, nice to see you. And even though it was online, when we all got back into our group, and they broke silence, people were just weeping. Oh, Gurudev knew my name. Oh, he paid. It's amazing how we have that personal connection with him.
Wow. So you were also part of editing the book Walk Like a King and Be a Perfect Servant, which is like the most important book when you get after becoming teacher. How was that whole incident?
So I was teaching in Trinidad, and I had been full-time now for maybe 4 or 5 years. And maybe it was 94 or something like that. I came to Bangalore, to the ashram, and I remember getting off the plane and getting into a bus, one of the little buses that we had. It was late at night. The flight came in maybe at 3 o'clock in the morning. And you know who picked me up at the airport on the bus? It was Vikram Hazard. And I remember him sitting next to me, and he looked at me and he said, "Oh, welcome home. Welcome to the ashram." He said, "When did you do your Art of Living course? Are you new to Art of Living?" And here I was, a full-time teacher, and I'm being greeted by somebody. I have no idea who they are. And they didn't know who I was. And, I felt like, oh, I'm such an important person. I'm one of the first full-time teachers. And then they took me to my room, and I remember there were no beds. There was an international course. There were no beds, and I had to sleep on the floor the first night I went there on a couple of blankets. And again, another one of those ego busting moments. And then I got put into another kutir. I bet that doesn't even exist anymore on the campus. And there were two levels, an upstairs and a downstairs. I was on the downstairs, and it was just filled with dust, and you had to use the restroom at night. You had to walk up these steps to go to the restroom. And for some reason, Gurudev was not allowing me to have much access to him. And I was just completely miserable, feeling very disconnected. So in that feeling of disconnection, I decided I'm going to write a book. And I had all these talks that Gurudev had. I had them on audio cassettes, and I just started transcribing them and putting them together. And that's how Walk Like a King came about, out of frustration with Gurudev and feeling a little demoralized. I put that together. And it's a very nice, lovely little book, isn't it? Especially when you become a teacher. And I
Yes.
can tell you a story that's interesting. So in putting that together, I wrote an introduction to the book. And when we completed the whole thing, we were somewhere in some hotel, and I brought the manuscript to Gurudev, and I told him of the project and why I was doing this and everything. And he said, I want you to read it to me. And I've never seen Gurudev go line by line through something. He didn't even do that with Stumbling into Infinity, or even a manual that had been created. He wanted to hear this line by line. And after I read the introduction to him, he said, no, take that all out. That's no good. I want you to write this. And he dictated word by word what he wanted. It came from, it sounds like I'm writing it, but it's completely Gurudev's words. And, I think I mentioned on the previous interview, when I first met him, he came to Maharishi International University, and I looked into his eyes, and I had this cathartic experience of crying, and that we sat outside in 30-degree weather, and he was on the stage, and I wanted to put a shawl. He said, write that story. He says, write about the time where I was outside and I was chanting, and you wanted to put a coat around me, and I looked into your eyes and you cried. I had never told him that story. We had never discussed that. And it was, must have been 20 years later from that event, and he knew it word by word what that experience was, which was amazing. And if you go back, if you have some time to read that little section, they're not my words. And the most incredible thing is, he says, a teacher are the limbs of the master. Without the teachers, Gurudev, we are so much part of Gurudev. Gurudev is all of us. If you think it's just this physical form, Ravishankar, it's not. It's all of us together, because how else does the knowledge get disseminated?
Mm.
You're going to go back and read that, I know.
True. I'm getting the goosebumps, listening it from the master, and thank you for putting it down for all of us.
Yeah. Just another one of those happenings, right?
Yeah, true. This Guru Story series that we are recording, it's actually benefiting many people around the world. I get so many calls and messages from Dubai, from Australia, from US, and different countries, even remote part of India. And the people have created this Facebook page and Instagram page. I just started recording on Facebook. There was no page, nothing.
Yeah.
But I think when I was missing Gurudev, because of the lockdown, I could not go to ashram. Then I thought, let's hear about him, and something wonderful came. And this, what you're talking about, the teacher are limbs of the master.
Hmm.
I'm just imagining how it would have been listening from the master himself. So beautiful.
One time I was at the Bangalore Ashram, and I went home, and
Mm.
I flew through Mumbai, and I had a lot of time in my connecting flight. So I went to a place where you probably can't do this anymore. You could store your luggage for several hours,
Okay.
so you don't
Yeah.
have to walk around the ashram. And this is way before Gurudev became popular in India. And there was a woman behind the counter who took my name and my passport number to check in my luggage. And right next to her on the wall was a picture of Ravishankar, Sri Sri Ravishankar. And I had never seen anybody in public have a picture of Gurudev because all the popularity, it hadn't happened yet. Maybe this was like 92 or something like this, 93. And I asked her, I said, "Who is that?" And she says, "That's my guru." And who's that? She says, "His name is Sri Sri Ravi Shankar." And I said, "Wow." I said, "Do you interact with your guru? Do you talk with him? Do you meet with them?" And she said, "I've never met him. I only have his photo." And there was no YouTube, there was no Facebook. Maybe she saw him on TV once and heard him, no interaction. And she had his photo there. And it was like such a humbling experience for I've had so much opportunity to be with him. And here's this woman, all she has is a photograph. How much devotion she has. So I think the work you're doing is amazing in putting this together and inspiring devotees all over the world. And I'm sure from all the Guru stories they're hearing, whether they're in Hindi or in English, many hearts are opening and blossoming with the work that you're doing.
That is the experience for me also, while recording it or editing it later, I get to listen to it multiple times. But
Yeah.
it is so beautiful to listen to all these stories from all of you. It's so inspiring how much of hard work Gurudev has put, how much of hard work with such honest intention you all have put. And from there, such a big movement has been created. His friendship with John and Jeff Hawk. That's why I had John. So you and John, like you mentioned, you were like a trinity, three Dev, John and Jeff and you. So how was this bonding?
Uh, Jeff Houck, when I first heard about the art of living, I wanted to learn more about it before I even went to an intro talk or anything. So somebody gave me a phone number, and the phone number was of Jeff Houck. And I called him on the phone to find out about the Art of Living course. What was it all about? And he talked to me in very friendly voice, and he said, you'll learn a lot about yourself. You really go inward. You'll have a deep experience. In those days, we wouldn't mention Sudarshan Kriya. There was no mention of breathing, nothing like that. It was very mysterious. But he would just go on and on about all these like obscure things. And I would just say, "Jeff, thanks very much. But can you tell me something specific, something definite? What is the course about?" And he would just say, "Your heart will open and you'll feel more relaxed and you'll feel more integrated." And I'd say, "That sounds great, but tell me exactly what is it that we do?" And then again, he would go, "Oh, you feel connected to everybody and a sense of belongingness." And I was like, "Tell me exactly." And then he got upset on the phone and he said, "I really don't think you're ready for this." And then he hung up on me. And then 2 weeks later, I'm flying to Montreal for my very first silence course, and he's on the flight with us. And I meet him, and it was like, "Oh, this is the guy who hung up on me." But as soon as we got in person and we started talking, we became best friends. And we've had lots of adventures together. And John, I met at an intro talk that Gurudev was doing. And John and I come from very different backgrounds and different, maybe, social structures. And we were very adversarial in the very beginning. I'd say we're very dear friends right now, very close.
You
But
mentioned about it.
yeah, but very adversarial relationship. And I could share a story if that's okay,
Yeah,
if you have time.
yeah, a lot of time.
So, I don't know if I told you this story already, but we were, Gurudev was flying into Los Angeles, and we were going to do some event. And then from Los Angeles, he was going to drive up to Santa Barbara. And I very much wanted to talk to Gurudev. I think it was about some girl I was involved in, and I had some heartbreak, and I really personally needed to spend some quality time. And I thought, if I have him in my car, 2 hours to Santa Barbara, I can just share my whole heart with him. So I got to the airport early, and I parked in a very strategic space so we could easily get to my car once it gets off the flight. And I think I drove there with Jeff Hauk, and we're there waiting for Gurudev to come. He comes off the plane. I give him some flowers, and little to my knowledge, John Osborne shows up much later than we did, just 5 minutes before the flight comes. And he comes in this big Lincoln Continental town car, and he parks right in front of the door to the airport. And he figures, okay, the ticket's going to be $100. I don't care. But Gurudev is coming right into my car. And soon as Gurudev walks towards the entrance, he sees John's car, and he says, I'm going to go in John's car. It's right there. Michael, why don't you go get my luggage and wait for my luggage? So I'm stuck in the airport. I have to spend an extra half hour waiting for his luggage. Gurudev goes off. So I'm very intent on driving him to Santa Barbara. So I park in the driveway so no cars can come out. Gurudev has to come into my car when he leaves. And John's car is parked on the street somewhere. In the middle of the satsang, John leaves the house, takes his car, drives it on the lawn of the house, and parks right in front of the door. So that, again, Gurudev has to go right into his car. And so we get out of the house, and John's there, and there were some other devotees, Dean and Shirley Harmison, who also spent lots of time with Gurudev, a lot of time. And John's taking luggage out of the car because he can't fit his guitar in there, Gurudev and his luggage, and Dean and Shirley's car. Excuse me. And John turns to me and he says, Michael, can you take my guitar and some of the luggage up to Santa Barbara? And I said, I'm not taking your luggage because I'm so upset. I could see Gurudev is coming in the car. I want him to come in my car. And Gurudev walks by at that very moment. And all he hears was me say, no, John, I'm not taking your luggage in my car. And then he gets in John's car, and the two of them drive off to Santa Barbara. And I get to drive to Santa Barbara with John's luggage in my car for 2 hours. And then later that week, we're doing some process for teachers. I don't want to spoil it for new people. And in the middle of the process, Gurudev is looking at all of us, and he says, I want you to have a yes mind. And he said, somebody comes to you and asks you, can you take some luggage in your car? And you say no. And he's looking right at me. And since that time, I must have gone through that same teacher training process with him. Oh, dozens of times with other teacher trainings. He's done the same process. Every time he uses that same example. Somebody asks you to take some luggage in your car and you say no. And I feel like, oh, I'm that silly guy with the luggage.
Yeah. Very funny. I think I thought that this whole trend of trying to hijack Gurudev while the travel has just started after the crowd has started, but it seems it has been from before.
No.
We also have done what not to,
And then there was another devotee. His name was Doug, and he was a very successful financial guy. And John was working in the finance industry. And Gurudev would come out of somebody's house, and the asana would come, and the two of them would fight over the asana to try to get it into their car. They would almost rip the asana. They would fight so many times. So nothing has changed.
Yeah, who gets the asana? Who gets the black bag?
If you got the asana, that's 90%, right? You got possession of the asana. Right?
Yeah.